Now I want to jump right into pro mindset because that's where my passion is, because I want to share with you how it came about. Pro mindset really came about from doing a podcast, interviewing former GMs, current GMs, current and former coaches, current and former players, people from ESPN media types, and in asking questions in an organic fashion, not just having a script, going, oh my God, what about this and what about that? Doing a really, strict interview, I would just wing it. And I would go from, hey, I'm asking about why they thought they were successful. Why, how did they recover from their biggest failure? If you look at most successful people, they had an epic failure and they figured out how to recover from that failure. Where most people that are younger in your generation, you never want to fail. But your recovery from your failures are going to define you. And so in doing these interviews, 7 things just kind of started popping up. There was almost like 7 different things. And every time I would interview somebody and I would ask them about their mountain peak experience, their valley experience, the pivot point in their career where they knew that they could do it. Because all of us have that point in time where we're like, okay, I can do this. And all of us have doubts too. I mean, think about being a doctor. When male, female, doesn't matter. When that doctor gets out of med school, when do they realize they've got what it takes to be an excellent doctor? Well, hopefully it's before they get out of med school. But there's going to be a point where they faced a certain challenge and they figured out, hey, I got this. Okay. So in dealing with NFL players, it's been really cool because unlike the normal professional that has 30, 40 years to build a career, sometimes an NFL player has 3 or 4 weeks, 3 or 4 months. And the decisions they make and the performance they put on the field, the way they handle learning the playbook and all those types of things can make a difference in them making as a rookie $610,000 or 0. So like I was watching the Chiefs game on Monday afternoon and Byron Pringle made a nice catch for the Chiefs and he played there at K-State. He's a guy that came out early. Should he have come out early? I don't know. He didn't get drafted. He ends up with Kansas City. He's been up and down on their practice squad and their active roster. I don't represent him, but he's, and they've got all you guys that are Chiefs fans, they've got a tremendous stable of receivers. So he's trying to find his identity in that room. And so as a young man like that, you could look at this through his eyes. Patrick Mahomes has got the ball going. I mean, he's rocking. When you sign a contract for $503 million, holy smokes. Okay. But that's one guy in the whole league with 1,774 players. That's one guy that's got that kind of deal. Byron Pringle is a rank and file kind of guy. And most of the players in the NFL are like Byron. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of go into what I've learned are the 7 ingredients, the 7 things you got to have if you want to have game in whatever you choose to do. Okay. So I'm not very good at following PowerPoints. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoints, but some people that I know are very big fans of PowerPoints. So I'm going to go through this a little bit. When you reverse an NFL player, you really look at the scouting factors of what NFL scouts are looking for in prospects. There's physical traits and mental traits. And the physical traits are the normal things: height, weight, and speed, twitchiness, athleticism, those types of things. The mental characteristics are their work ethic. It's their performance in big games. It's their background check. It's their coachability. It's their learning aptitude. It's things of that nature. Okay. The average NFL player plays 2.7 games. Most people think it's like 2.7 years. Think about this for a second. I'm going to give you 3 examples of players. You got the guy that gets drafted, like the the kid for the Broncos from the Chiefs. I'm blanking on his name. He's an offensive lineman. He's doing an awesome job. He's a starter. He will probably play over 100 NFL games if his health stands up. He's going to play over 100 games. So for him, Dalton Risner just popped in my head. So Dalton is doing a phenomenal job with the Broncos. He was a day one, game one starter. He's been in the NFL for roughly 21 games, and he started all 21 games. His offensive line coach is a client of mine that played for the Broncos that's now offensive line coach. My client's favorite Bronco offensive lineman is Dalton Risner. So he's played 21 out of 21 games. He will probably play 150 games, maybe 160 is 10 years, provided his health holds up. Then you've got the guys in the middle that might be on the active roster and be a special teams guy, maybe a part-time starter, maybe a sub-package guy. And they don't ever really get to start, but they're playing in the NFL. They may play 3 or 4 years. And then once it gets to the point in their career where a team has to make a major decision about, hey, am I really going to pay this guy? Are we going to replace him with someone younger, cheaper, and healthier? And the answer is always younger, cheaper, and healthier, I promise you. And when you're paying guys like Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones with Kansas City crazy money, you have to always get younger, cheaper, and healthier players. And then you've got the guys that, and all of you may know of or know someone that's played in the NFL, and you look them up and their name doesn't show up. And everybody's like, oh yeah, he played in the NFL, but his name doesn't show up. Well, that's the guy. He might've been on a practice squad for 3 years, made 300,000 or 400,000, which is more than most people make in that period of time, but he never got to play in a real game. Perhaps he got hurt as a rookie in training camp and they put him on injured reserve and he made 400 and some thousand, but he never played in a game. He got paid to have surgery, do rehab, go see the PT and try to get better. And then when he comes back the next year, sometimes the teams go, hey, we like this guy because he's similar to that player that just got hurt, but he's healthier. So we're going to go with him. So that guy never played in an NFL game. So that's why we're at 200. That's why we're at 2.7 games. I'm going to skip that one. Okay. This is a guy that played at Kansas State. One of my clients, he lives over in Kansas City, lives in Lake Quivira. So it's been a number of years ago. I had a client that was a coach at K-State, and he referred me to Ryan. They said, this guy is a tough SOB, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't on the NFL's radar. So I called a few scouts and said, hey, what do you think of him? Like, oh, he's kind of just a guy. So the truth be told, I wasn't interested in him. And the coach said, oh, he's a great guy. Well, Ryan calls me. I think K-State played in the Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma in Arrowhead that year, and Oklahoma won. And his season, they had a bowl game, and his season was over. And he calls me and says, hey, Craig, you interested in me? Well, that's a tough position to be in. You got a guy who's a great dude who's recommended by one of your client coaches, and he's not really rated that high. And he calls you and says, hey, do you want to work with me? So he apparently at the time had a girlfriend that was getting an internship or having an internship in Colorado Springs. And he was driving her to Colorado Springs. And I said, well, heck, I'll be happy to meet you for lunch. So Ryan and I, at the time, my son was in kindergarten. And I said, dude, I'll meet you for lunch as long as I go pick up my kid and he come to the meeting. So I go to pick up my kid at kindergarten and go meet Ryan at Champs, an unbelievable human being. He's got it all. He's got belief. He's got it all. So I ended up signing him. And he had some major injuries. And Coach Snyder back then, hey, if you had a pretty serious injury, rub some dirt on it and you'll be okay. That was kind of the mojo back then. Well, anyway, long story short, this kid did not get drafted, got signed by Dick Vermeil and the Chiefs, got cut at the end of training camp, got claimed by the Colts, started 7 games as a rookie, started 104 games in his career, Very few NFL players start 100 games. This guy won a Super Bowl, has a Super Bowl ring, made big money, and it all started with him getting $9,000 signing bonus. And he played 11 years. So the question I've got to ask you guys is, here's this guy at K-State. He's not even the best player on the team. How does he play in the NFL for 11 years? Well, Ryan has all seven attributes. He's got them all. So I'm going to take a real quick pause and take a little sidebar here. And because I can't see you guys, but I know that some of you like to play video games. Okay. So I'm going to ask you about two things. One is your investments and one is about your video game play. So let's talk about investments first. If you invested, I don't care if you got $1,000. If you invested $1,000 in 7 different stocks, and because you go to K-State's business school, they're going to teach you about diversification. So you're not going to put all your money in one stock. You're going to put your money in 7 stocks. The question is, can you get double-digit returns in a year if one of the companies goes bankrupt? And I can't see anybody's response, but I can already tell you the answer is yes, because you could have 1 or 2 stocks really rock to make up for the company that went bankrupt. Now let's compare that to your passion for playing video games. To play video games, you've got to have roughly 6 or 7 things. You got to have electricity, Wi-Fi if you want to play with your homeboys wherever they may be going to school. You have to have a monitor, a box, software, and a controller. So my question is, if you cannot find your controller, can you play video games? And the answer is, that's why you spend 15 minutes looking under the couch, throwing the pillows around, trying to find the controller, because you cannot play video games without the controller. So what's the point? The point is, if you want to have a crazy successful career in the NFL or out of the NFL, you have to have all 7. It's like video games. You can't, if you don't have any one of those, you can't play. Okay. Brock Kateris is another guy. I won't go into details on Brock. Suffice it to say, I named my 3rd kid after Brock because I was so impressed with his character and his personality and things of that nature. Domann, played 189 games. This is another guy. He was a 4th rounder. The bottom line is, I could go through the success of these guys. Just let's stipulate that every single one of these guys has been, even though you haven't heard of them, this is not Peyton Manning. These guys are set. These guys made it. These guys, when you look them up, you'll find their names and their pictures. Okay. So there's a critical question here. What makes a successful NFL player? What makes a successful doctor, banker, professor? You pick the category, okay? I'm here to tell you today that it's about pro mindset. There's 7 things you got to have. It starts at the bottom. Belief, passion, motivation, training, lifestyle habits, and performance, okay? Belief is number 1. It's your foundation, okay? I'm going to go through belief. There's 3 categories here. It's how you think, what you do, and how you perform. And how you think are going to be the first 3, which is belief, passion, and motivation. What you do is lifestyle and training. And how you perform comes down to your habits and your performance. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go off script here, and I'm going to talk about belief. Belief has 2 components. When you guys walk in the classroom again and you're going to take a test, your classmates and your teacher can feel that you're ready or you're not. When you walk on the court, you walk on the field, your coaches, your teammates, and your opposition, they know if you're ready or you're not. It's your identity. So in belief, there's 2 parts. It's belief in yourself and it's confidence in your skills. So I'm here to tell you that if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to. If you don't believe in yourself, your coaches are not going to trust you as a player. And if you're the receiver, let's say, for example, we go empty, we got 5 receivers set, and we huddle up, old-fashioned football, you huddle up, and the quarterback can kind of feel that one of the receivers is not feeling the mojo, is not being confident. Subconsciously, the quarterback's going to throw it to one of the other 4. If he feels it, and he'll feel it. If it's there, he'll feel it. He will not even look at that receiver. And it's all on a subconscious level, okay? Confidence in your skills, it goes without saying that if you don't practice and you don't hone your skills, you're probably not going to have confidence. But that's something that, it's like the Outliers book. You got to get 10,000 reps to be proficient. Well, it goes without saying that if you're a soccer girl or you're a volleyball lady, or if you're a baseball player, the more at bats you get, the more practices you've been, the more teams you've been on, the more years you've played, the better you're going to be. Okay. Now I'm going to share a story that's not on this PowerPoint. I was out to lunch about a month ago with a gentleman that was in the Special Forces. And he was in the Special Forces for more than a decade. And I asked him to describe for me what it was like when he was going through boot camp when they selected the 12. And he shared with me that what they would do is they would have physical training, so workouts, until 25 guys quit. 25 people quit. So it wasn't a designed workout where, hey, we're going to do this today. No, we're going to work until the 25th guy quits. Because we need, out of the 800, we need 788 guys to quit. But we only need 25 today. Okay. And that kind of process went on and on and on until they got down to the final 25. Well, then there's 24. Then it's 15. The operative time is when you get to 13. And why is that? Because when you've got 13 candidates left, only one has got to quit. So I asked him, what was the difference? I'm thinking pro mindset. I'm thinking, okay, what was the mojo that the 12 had that the 13th didn't have? And he very astutely didn't even blink. He said all 12 knew before they started. And he won. He was one of the 12. He said, I knew no matter what they put me through, I knew before I even started in the program, I was going to make it. So I'm still begging him to tell me what was different between the 12 and the 1. And he said the difference between the 12 and the 1 was the 13th person was only 99.9% sure they were going to make it. It just took them longer to find that doubt. It took them to the very end to find that 100th of 1% that separated that 13th person from the 12th. So what's the point? It doesn't matter if it's business, it doesn't matter if it's school or sports. You have to believe 100%. And Dr. Walker, if somebody gets a 93, 95% on a test, what kind of grade do you give them?
Yeah, they did pretty well.
They got an A.
You did.
Yes. Well, in the NFL, if you're at 99.99%, you don't make it. If you're in the Special Forces and you're in the pursuit of being one of those people, if you're at 99.9%, you're not going to make it. So I cannot emphasize enough how much belief is in who you are and what you accomplish. And I'll even go so far as to say that you cannot perform inconsistent with your belief, meaning that if you really believe, it's hard to do bad. Because if you really believe, you're going to do the work so that you do well. And if you don't believe, it's hard to be successful. So I'm here to tell you that I don't care if it's politics, I don't care if it's business, medicine, education, you pick the major categories. And you look at the leaders in any one of those categories. The CEO of Google, I don't care what company you pick. I don't care if it's a man or woman. I don't care if they have a PhD or if they have their bachelor's. The common denominator is they believe. Okay. I had this kid, David Deal, played at University of Illinois. I got to share this one with you. His nickname was Hollywood. Okay. Comes out of Illinois. He wasn't even the best offensive lineman on their team. He gets drafted in the 5th round by the New York Giants. And I'm talking to David about 3 weeks into OTAs, and I'm asking him how things are going. And he's like, hey, man, I got this. I said, what do you mean? He says, I said, well, how are you getting around? Because he didn't have a car. He was a 5th round. He got like $150,000 signing bonus. Didn't make sense for him to buy a car in New York. And he's like, hey, Michael Strahan's let me drive one of his extra ones. I'm like, that's cool. I said, who are you hanging with on the team? Oh, I'm best friends with Eli Manning, Jeremy Shockey, all their stars back in the mid 2000s. He was hanging out with all the studs, all the rock stars on the team. And I'm thinking he's kidding me. And he's like, oh yeah, Tiki Barber had a barbecue the other night and I got to go. He was hanging with the right people because he believed, and he was emanating belief about who he was. So he was a game one starter. He started 100% of the plays. He played in every single play his rookie year on offense. 100%. Out of his first 5 seasons in the NFL, I think he played 4 of them. He played 100%. He didn't miss a play except for one series in one game in his first 80 games. 2 times Super Bowl champ, thanks to the Patriots. They beat the Patriots both times. He's now on Fox doing broadcasting for the NFL. But this guy had a belief beyond his circumstances. He was a 5th rounder from Illinois, and he wasn't even the best. He wasn't the first offensive lineman drafted out of there. And he wasn't the best one on his team. And yet he goes to NFL and he starts 160 games, which is 10 years of games. I know you guys probably realize this, but the NFL is a very violent sport. Your bodies are not designed to play football like when they're 35 and 40. He did. So it was all based upon his belief. Next thing is passion. So let's talk about passion, how that plays in. Candidly, if you don't love what you're doing, you probably should do something else. If you're an athlete and you don't love your sport, you probably the end of your playing time in that sport is coming soon. Or you should just change and do something else. If your parents are saying, hey, you should go do this, but you don't love it, I'm here to tell you, don't do it. Do what you want to do. You have to do what you love. And so I was talking to a variety of people on my podcast, and I would ask them about, hey, why was this guy successful when he didn't even have the most athleticism? And they would say, OWT. And I'm like, what's OWT? Well, he had obsessive want to. Okay. So what you need to look in the mirror and figure out what you're obsessive about, what you really love to do, what you enjoy. One of my guys, Rob Ninkovich, he played in the NFL for 11 years for the Patriots, won a couple Super Bowls, was a 5-time captain, made a ton of money. He's on ESPN every Thursday and Friday during the year. Makes $450,000 a year being on TV 2 days a week. Pretty good job. And I'm talking to him and I'm going, Rob, how did this happen? When he faced I'll talk about Rob later, but he had so much adversity. I'm like, how did you overcome this? He said, I just had football in the brain. So what is on your brain? Because whatever's on your brain is what you're going to be successful at and what you should be doing. Don't chase the money. Don't chase the prestige. Don't try to be like somebody in your family. Be your own person. And God gave us all like dreams. He gave us wants. He gave us desires. Whatever that is for you, that's what you're going to be the most successful at. Okay, so I'm going to go back to passion. This is how passion plays in for an NFL player. Every single one of those guys, when they were 7 and 10 and 14, loved the game. And then it becomes a pursuit of scholarships once they're in high school. Then once they get in college, they want to make it to the league. And then when they make it to the league, they want to get paid. They want to have financial security. If their passion is still there, a lot of those things they all happen. But what happens is, what I tell guys all the time, it's the battle of the passions. Nobody said you had to be passionate only about one thing. The question is, can you keep the main thing the main thing? If football is your main thing, can it be more important than video games? More important than girls? More important than hanging out at the mall on your off day and spending your money and going shopping and doing all the fun things you can do now that you couldn't do before? There's nothing wrong with any of those things I said, but as soon as it takes precedence over your main passion, which in this case is the game of football, that's the beginning of the end for that player's career. So you might, probably don't think about this, but when you're watching TV and watching the NFL, especially if let's say you're a Chiefs fan, and you wonder why somebody disappeared. They were a really good player for 3 or 4 years and they disappeared. Did they get slower? Did they get worse? Did something happen? Did they get hurt? Maybe. But if none of those things happen, a lot of times is they've lost their passion because they're more passionate about something else. Some guys get in the NFL, get a little bit of money and think, oh, I want to be a rap artist now. I got a little seed money now that I can actually fund my own studio. So they're spending all their time working on their rap video and not studying their playbook. And then they wonder why they get replaced. So if you do have a passion, that's what you should be doing. And if you jump into that passion in the real world and other passions pop up, it's okay. You can have multiple passions. Just make sure you keep the main thing the main thing. Next one's motivation. Everybody's got to know what their why is, what drives them, what their calling is, what their purpose is. Here's what I can say about motivation. It's multidimensional. For that athlete that says, oh, I want to make it to the NFL so I can buy my mama a house. That's a great motivator. But what happens when you buy your mom a house? Now what? What drives you now? So you got to have a perpetual motivator, not just something that is finite. So finite motivators are great. Okay. I want this much money in the bank. I want to play for this long. I want to buy my brother, sister, mom, dad, whatever, something. But if you don't have a perpetual motivator, and a perpetual motivator looks like this: I want to get better every day. I want to get more proficient at something I'm not that good at. I really feel like Patrick Mahomes has perpetual motivators. He's not in awe of the NFL. His father played in the major leagues. He was a bat boy for many years. The guy's not surprised by what the NFL is about, professional sports is about. He gets a contract for $503 million. He's still balling out. He hasn't satisfied his motivation. And the reason why is because he has perpetual motivators. And you can tell the guys that do and the guys that don't. Because the guys that don't have perpetual motivators are the guys that once they get paid, they go in the tank. The little boo-boo takes them out 3 weeks out of games because, oh yeah, my hammy's bothering me. The guys that have perpetual motivators don't miss a beat. Next thing is work ethic. I'm going to move to habits and then go back to work ethic. I really believe, as I have studied and done more interviews, I did this PowerPoint back in May when I spoke at the University of Illinois. That's actually earlier than that. Things change, things evolve. I now see where habits is so important because it is. Today, some of you guys got up and worked out, ate breakfast, were ready for class, maybe even took a shower, okay? Others of you threw on a hat, turned off your video, and are still sitting in your pajamas. Okay. And you haven't eaten anything and you haven't done anything. And I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I'm just saying that that's a different way of handling your scheduling. And it's a different way of preparing for your day. Well, as an NFL player, as well as a business person, with an NFL player, you've got training camp, it's a different season. You got the regular season, and then you got the off season. There's a different mojo, there's a different flow for all three of those time periods. And if your habits really are the things that define you in terms of how productive, how successful you can be. So in training camp in the NFL, you got to be all in. You don't spend a lot of time with your wife and kids. You don't do hobbies. You're spending about 12 to 13 hours a day focusing on your game, focusing on your craft, learning your playbook, connecting with your coaches, taking care of your body. Players have to take care of their bodies more than the teams take care of their bodies, because the teams kind of take the approach, hey, if your body wears out, we'll just put you on IR and sign another guy. But you know what? That doesn't help your career. You want to stay on the active roster and stay playing in the games. So at the end of the day, during training camp, players have to be uber focused and really block out everything. During the off season, they can go to Cancun. They can go have fun. They can go connect with friends and family and still put in an hour to 2 hours of workouts, and they're fine. But during preseason, not so much. Okay, then I want to go to training. This is where most high school coaches live. Oh, you got to work hard. True. College coaches are similar to that. But the guys that have savage work ethic are the ones that develop their skills. So think about, let's take Dr. Walker and people in his world. All teachers and all professors are not the same. Some of them are really, really good. Some of them make their subject matter very interesting. Some of them challenge you guys. And some of them make a major impact, not just academically, but socially on your life. And so during the course of a semester, and this is unprecedented times doing this Zoom class, but think about the teachers that have made the biggest impact on your college experience. Okay. They're not all the same. Some of them show up to class and don't do much, but just say, hey, read this and we'll take a test on it. Okay. So what's this? How does this apply to training? As an athlete, as a business person, as a professional, everybody's either getting better or a little bit worse today. The question is, are you developing your skills and your talents? And as an NFL guy, if you don't have savage work ethic, you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to get faster. You're not going to get healthier. You're not going to get more pliable, more flexible. As a quarterback, there's so many different skills these guys have to be good at. I'll just name a few. Reading a defense, anticipating where the receivers are going to be on certain routes, making different types of throws from different arm sockets, different paces. Not every throw is going to be a fastball. Patrick Mahomes, I don't want to keep bringing him up, but he's kind of like the poster child right now for NFL quarterbacks. He's mobile. He's creative. He can throw from all different pockets, arm sockets. The guy, he's got an arm that he can throw the ball 80 yards, but he doesn't throw a fastball every time. He's throwing to a backup tight end and he doesn't want the ball ricocheting off the tight end's hands. He's got to throw it with moderate pace. He's got to dump it over linebackers, dump it over DNs on swing routes. Those are all different skills that don't get developed unless you train. So if you're sitting there thinking, man, I love Craig. He's awesome. Man, if I just believe, it's just going to happen. I'm going to be great. Probably not. Because in this section right here, if you're not a hard worker, if you're not willing to put in the effort and the time, you're not going to get better. You're not going to be the best in whatever you do. So this is where, the type A personalities, the students out there that have never got a B, you've got this in spades. You've never gotten a B in your life. That's a compliment, but it also reveals that you're a tremendously hard worker. But that doesn't guarantee success after college. You also have to have these other things too. Okay, I already did that one. Okay, this is my sabotage component. For NFL guys, this is the guy that shoots himself in the foot by thinking he's ready for the game, doesn't pay attention to the game plan, get beats on Sunday because he didn't know the tendencies of, hey, third and short, red zone situations for the opposition. He's a DB. This is where I really feel like it's the off the field stuff that short circuits your career. It's like I could tell you stories until the cows come home about guys that were phenomenal athletes, drafted pretty high, making a lot of money, having a lot of success, and then they shot themselves in the foot. And it's because of girls, because of money, because of distractions. And when you're in the NFL, you have a lot of distractions and you have a lot of temptations. So how does this apply? How does the rubber meet the road for you in school? How does this apply to you guys that are going to go into the real world and be professionals in some industry? Well, you know what? If you screw around on your spouse, you can give away 50% of your wealth really fast. Okay, that's one way you could do it. Another way you could do it is, hey, I had a guy that was a quick story. I had a client. He was a third rounder at Virginia Tech. He was with the Arizona Cardinals, and he was a starter. He was primed to get paid, but he didn't give me the vibe like he was consistent and he was reliable. I flew down to Phoenix, went over to Tempe, sat down with the GM, and I said, hey, what's your vision for, his first name was Eric. What's your vision for Eric moving forward? And what I'm really asking is, how much do you like him and how much do you want to pay him? But I'm really asking in a more professional way, how do you envision him being in the organization moving forward? And he said, hey, that's a great question. We've been talking about it in the building. Would you mind if I invite in the head coach? And I said, absolutely. So he invited in the head coach. I said, hey, coach, how you doing? So I asked him the same question. I said, what's your vision for Eric moving forward? And he goes, hey, Craig, here's the thing. I don't feel comfortable paying a 729er. And I said, coach, what's a 729er? And he goes, well, it's the dude that leaves his place. We have 7:30 meetings every morning, by the way. And there are 53 players on the team. I want all 53 there on time. If he hits every green light between his house and the facility, he gets here at 7:29. He says, Craig, do you know how often he's here at 7:29? I said, probably never. He says, he's late 3 times a week. So what's the point? The point was, people set meetings at a certain time for a reason. They want you to be on time. And your future employer is going to want you to be on time. In the NFL, they want you to be on time. Nothing you teach in school. Guess what? Players, and if you know any players, they think it's on player time. The party starts when they show up. Everything starts when they show up. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay. So from a lifestyle standpoint, what I tell guys is this: you get this short window of opportunity. You better take advantage of that opportunity during the lifetime of that opportunity, because that opportunity will pass. And for Eric, it passed. He only made like 7.5 more million. He should have made 40. Okay. There's my 729er. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is performance. And and think about this for a second. I'm going to give you 2 examples. One is sports and one is school. you know your playbook, you practice hard, you know your role, you eat your Wheaties on game day, and you show up in the stadium and you muff the punt. Coach has a trick play and you're supposed to be the recipient of the pass, and it goes right between your hands. You do everything right, but you don't make the play. This is about, can you, on game day, in crunch time, make the play? Let's talk about school. You read all your books. You even go on YouTube to get another professor's perspective. You have a study group. You might even stay up all night. You might start studying a week ahead of the exam, but during the exam, you black out. And you don't demonstrate to your professor what you really know. You don't demonstrate to the professor even how much you care about the topic, because during crunch time, you clutch. So in my opinion, there's 4 ways that you can make sure that on game day or on test day, you perform at the highest level. Number 1 is you got to prepare. Number 2 is you have to practice whatever that skill is before the game. So in football, it's pretty easy. If you're not making that catch in practice, coach is going to replace you, or he's not going to call that play. If you don't take practice exams, if it's important to you, trying to get into med school, whatever it might be, lots of different professional exams, they have practice exams. If you're not taking those things, you're not going to be prepared. And then for my athletes, I talk about visualizing yourself making the play before you play the game. So we didn't have March Madness this year, but the last time we had March Madness was 2019. And I was sitting in my living room watching Virginia in the semis. And you may recall Virginia won, and Virginia won the whole thing. But in the semis, they were behind and they almost lost. And one of their wing players shot a 3 and looked like all he was trying to do was draw a foul. He drew the foul, got to shoot 3 shots. If he makes all 3, they win the game. And I remember vividly when he was walking to the line, and now all the pressure's on. The announcers are talking about, oh my God, this guy's got to make all 3. If he makes all 3, they get to go to the finals. And I'm like, he's making them. He's making all 3. And the reason why is because of his body language. He was emanating confidence that, hey, I got this. This is what I wanted. That was what I designed in that play to draw the foul. And then visualizing, he had made in his mind's eye those shots millions and millions of times. He knew before he got to the line, free throw line, that he was going to make it, and he did. And the reason why is because he prepared. He obviously practiced his free throw shooting because he was like a 92% free throw shooter. And he visualized himself making it in the biggest of moments. So when that big moment came, it was just, he was ready. And then the last thing on game day is this how it goes for players. Big play, red zone, 4th and goal, got to get a TD to win the game. Don't get a TD, lose the game, and you're the quarterback because you guys are all the quarterbacks of your own lives, your own careers. You're the quarterback. Coach calls your play, and one of 2 things are going through your mind. I hope I don't screw up. Hope the coaches don't yell at me. I wonder what my daddy's going to say after the game when we go to dinner when I didn't make the play. I wonder what's going to happen. What are my teammates going to think of me when I throw a pick? All those kind of thoughts. Or money. I got this. I got it. I'm going to show everybody. Well, the difference there is you're breathing. You're either breathing the oxygen of belief or the oxygen of doubt before the play even starts. When you break the huddle after the coach calls the play, you're breaking the huddle. You're like, I got this. So right now, I'm breathing the oxygen of belief. I'm not breathing the oxygen of doubt. I know this stuff. Whether you believe these 7 things are legit or not is up to you. I know they work. This is 30 years of history, 30 years of clients and coaches. But if I'm a performer, I got to know. You got to know. Okay. Now I'm going to go over the kryptonite, which is the killers for these 7 things. The 100th of 1% doubt on your belief is a killer. It's not 50-50. It's not even 1% doubt. It's 100th of 1% is too much. Passion. You know, I talk to scouts all the time and they're like, I got to check my time here just because there we go. Okay. Oh, coach, I'm already over. Okay. I'll wrap this up. Okay. So when scouts interview guys at the combine, they interview guys at their pro days, they always ask them what their plan B is. Hey, what do you want to do after football? Well, the smart thing is you probably should have something, an idea of something, but the guys that have plan Bs, that plan B always becomes plan A. So if you want to go be a doctor, don't have a plan B. If you want to be a banker, don't have a plan B. Be a banker. Okay. I'm going to skip the rest because we're running out of time. I'm going to see if there's anything else. I just want to give you a 2-minute synopsis of this kid. Rob Ninkovich with the Patriots. He is my pro mindset man. He exemplifies every one of these 7 things in spades. I don't have time to tell you all of them, but I'll share with you one story. He was cut 5 times before he got with the Patriots. He was stripped of his defensive position by Sean Payton, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame for the Saints, and made a long snapper. He was cut by Cam Cameron in Miami, and Cam was a 1-15 coach. And bottom line is, Rob had been he was like whale, you know what, at the bottom of the ocean. And my wife and I are in Bristol, and he's doing the car wash at ESPN. And after he did 14 shows in 8 hours, we went to a dive in at a pizza place nearby. And I'm sitting there having a beer with him and eating pizza going, Robbie, how in the heck did this happen to you? This is incredible. Do you remember this time and that time and this time? And I could tell you some crazy stories. And he said, I never stopped believing. I knew in the 3rd grade I wanted to play in the NFL. He had football in the brain. He had every one of these things: belief, passion, motivation, winning habits, work ethic, a positive lifestyle, and he knew how to perform when the lights were on. I want to thank you for listening today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Craig. Hey, you guys, go ahead and speak up. We got 2 or 3 minutes here. Go ahead and ask Craig whatever you got. I see one from Kelly. You could definitely ask, but I'll ask it for her. She said, of all the 7 building blocks, what would you say is the most important one?
That's an awesome question. The one that you're low in. You have to have all of them. And candidly, belief is the one that will kind of hide or mask delinquencies and some of the others. But it's like, if you're low, let's just take an automobile. If you're low on gas, you don't stop at a gas tank and get refueled, you're going to run out of gas. If you're low on oil, you're going to ruin your engine. So you know, it's like all the fluids in an engine, you need them all. But if you don't believe, if you don't have an identity of you're successful at whatever you're doing, you're done. You could be a hard worker. You have a great lifestyle. You could be motivated. If you don't have an identity of belief, you beat yourself before you've even gone out in the real world and challenged anybody else.
What made you decide that you wanted to be a sports agent? Like, was there a light bulb moment, or was it just something that you naturally went towards?
Here's the short answer is I wanted to be involved. My passion was sports, and sports agency just started when I got out of college. And I had the opportunity to meet Michael Jordan's agent. And I was like, I want to do what he does. And it's not easy. It's hard to get into. The barriers to entry are very high. The economics of the industry are very difficult, but it's like, I was naive. I just said, I'm going. So I think some of the things that, some of the best decisions you guys will make in your lives, you will go on gut. You'll just do it. People are like, why'd you do that? Because I just wanted to, because now with the, the world in your palm with your phone, you can research anything. Well, you can research possibilities so much that you don't even want to do it anymore because you find out so many negative things about whatever you were thinking about doing. So I think naivety sometimes is good, because if you really want it, Cameron, if you want to be whatever you want to be for whatever reason you want to be, it doesn't matter who your doubters are and your haters are, you can do it. And that's what I did.
Okay, great. So Craig, thank you so much for spending time with our class today. We really enjoyed it. You guys make sure to be back here tomorrow at 11:30. You'll get the opportunity to meet Craig's wife, Teddy, and we'll be able to see what player representation looks like from the marketing side. So thank you for joining us, everyone. I know some of you need to get off to class and work, and enjoy the day.